correct.
Are you expecting anyone, Mary?
No.
All right, well, we can introduce the folks that you don't know. So you know Jordan and me, but I don't think you met Dick.
Dick Murgatroyd, and I'm on the advisory board for the Elsa Sewell Foundation.
And a lifelong friend of Elsa's.
A lifelong friend of Elsa's, yes, for sure.
Me too.
And then Frank. Frank,
Doing anything?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Frank,
So you're-
I'm on the board, I think.
Nice to meet you.
Hi, Andy, board member.
all right, Mary, why don't you introduce yourself and the organization and take it away.
All right, I'm Mary Gartner. Hello. I'm the executive director for Girls on the Run Greater Cincinnati. I've worked here since 2009. I've been the director since 2014. And during that time, we have seen explosive growth and also now some a little bit of the other direction as well. I'm sure you've all had a chance to read about Girls on the Run, but briefly what we do is that we are an empowerment organization for young girls. We serve girls in grades 3 through 8 and reach them through a combination of character building lessons along with running and walking. So during what is normally a 10-week season, girls meet twice a week with volunteer coaches who are implementing a national curriculum. So one of the benefits of Girls on the Run being affiliated with Girls on the Run International is that the quality of the curriculum is very, very strong because of the research that is supporting all 200 councils throughout the United States and Canada. So coaches implement the lessons while they train for a 5K. And then at the end of the season, all of our girls, again, all of this is typical. Typically, they would all come together and do a 5K downtown Cincinnati. We would have about 4,000 runners, and girls are able to sort of see the fruits of their labor at that point in time. So they've been working for something for 10 weeks, setting little goals. This week, I'm going to try to run one lap longer than I did last week. And they're kind of chipping away at that goal. And then they come to the 5K, and it's such an amazing celebration. And they get to cross that finish line with their parent or their sibling or their coach and get a medal. And now they've had that experience, and they can take that with them to, if they do other sporting endeavors later in life, if they need to take it into their schoolwork, but they've had that experience of what it means to set a goal, work towards the goal, and then reach the goal. So it's about running, but what we use is the running is kind of the method that we use to teach these lessons. And the lessons are social emotional learning, which is more important than ever right now because it's giving girls tools to cope with what life is throwing at them. So the first lessons are giving girls an opportunity to kind of define their values. Then they work to establish their team and then serve their community. So it's kind of giving, as much as you can in 10 weeks, a whole person experience for the girls to really just feel that they have agency in their lives in what they want to do moving forward.
So what did you do last year when everything was shut down?
So in spring, when everything shut down, we were already halfway through our season. So we were very fortunate in that way that the girls already had an established relationship with their coaches. They had already received their running shoes. They already understood or had a really strong foundation of what Girls on the Run was about. So they finished out the season virtually. Our international organization was able to pivot, the magic word, very quickly to giving us tools and a platform to provide that online. So, and that was much simpler for them because the coaches already knew the girls. So it would be difficult to join, you know, a Zoom room of strangers when you're 8 years old and share your feelings to a new adult. But since they already had that established relationship, it was actually a very smooth transition. And, you know, when our season ended in May 2020, we were still not gathering in groups at all. So we mailed to the girls their bibs and their medals, and we just called it 5K Your Way, and they did a 5K experience with their families. And then we had them share photos of what that looked like. And, you know, remember a year ago, everybody was like still kind of enthralled with doing things virtually. It was kind of, you know, very novel, and we weren't burnt out on it. So there was a lot of energy surrounding that. Then coming into the new school year, some of our schools did not even go back in person in the fall. Some of our schools that did go back in person were not allowing any after school activities. What really gets me is that some of our schools that went back in person allowed for sports, but not other enrichment activities in which they categorized us. So we, you know, fought and scraped for about 300 girls. In a typical season, we would have had 1,300 to 1,400. We had 300 girls. We used a lot of park spaces, community centers, places where after school programming was already happening, and kind of got to use those spaces, and some of our schools that were allowing activities to happen. Because we serve 3 states, we've been all over the map in terms of what guidelines people are following. So we just worked with, you know, whatever we could get, and we implemented what we called a hybrid program. So coaches were trained to move back and forth fluidly between virtual and in person if their school shut down. So we had a couple teams that, you know, they would start in person, and then a girl got, you know, tested positive on the team, so they had to quarantine, but they already had the tools established to switch to online. So then they would spend the next week online and then come back in person. And with that, you know, since teams were meeting in person at the end of the season, we provided a 5K in a bag to all of our teams. So still not gathering, you know, large groups together, but what we did was distill down some of the most exciting parts of what our 5K is. We gave them some of the, if you've seen the photos, the tiaras that they could decorate, noisemakers, chalk so that they could decorate the school sidewalks, you know, obviously sent them their bibs and their t-shirts and their medals and all of that kind of thing. We made a special branded playlist that they could all play. So it was still, you know, their teams. Most of them were allowed to bring at least some other family members, you know, kind of depending on the size of the team, and they got to have a site-based 5K. And this spring, we've pretty much done the same thing, but we've been able to be a little bit bigger. So we have just over 600 girls. We were expecting 500, so that was a huge improvement. What we saw was that our teams filled immediately. The teams that we were able to have, just immediately everybody needed it, because it's one of the only activities that is happening for girls in this age. You know, thankfully, none of our schools now this season have had to shut down in any way. The coaches were still trained for the hybrid, but nobody has had to use that yet. And we are in the process right now of packing the 5K in a bags that we'll be giving to the coaches. So still using that same model. So they're still getting to have, you know, a miniature version of what that experience would look like.
You do your program twice a year,
Mhm.
fall and spring.
Correct.
Do you think you'll be back to usual next fall?
That's the magic question, right? It really depends on the schools. So at this point, you know, we know that they are doing, they're filing for emergency use authorization for ages 12 and up, which is only going to scratch the surface of our girls because we go as young as 8. So, you know, we'll be following the guidelines of the schools. If kids are still masked and socially distant in the classroom, then I don't see how we can safely have a large scale 5K. But if they are able to, you know, enter the school day as normal, then hopefully we will as well. We're not expecting to be back immediately to 1,400. We think we'll probably hit about 900 next season, and then hopefully by, you know, a year from now, be back to kind of our before time numbers.
How many kids are in a group, a team?
They a maximum of 16. We have a couple that have 20. You know, coaches could apply for that if they're very experienced coaches.
Have you recruited any new coaches over the past year, or pretty much just stuck with the existing ones?
Over the past year, we've mostly used the existing coaches and teachers that have already been supporting us. It's difficult because we haven't been able to do our full training, which is normally 5 hours long. So this would, you know, that'd be great. It would be tough for new coaches. We do have some, you know, at an existing school with a returning head coach, a couple of new assistants working with them. Mm-hmm. But most of our schools are not allowing outside volunteers to come on site. So we haven't been able to place a lot of community members who are interested. And I would say right now, that's one of the biggest struggles that we're having is that group of volunteers that engage with us, you know, twice a year because they volunteer at our 5K or attend our events. You know, we're really missing that.
I had a quick question, Mary. That number you're quoting, that usually you see about 1,500 girls, is that per year or per session?
Per season. So twice a year, having that range of 1,300 to 1,400 girls. Yeah.
And what did you do? I read you did do something with a COVID fee. Did you lower your fee? And is that still?
We've done a 20% off the top, just to kind of accommodate the fact that, you know, even our families who before might have been able to pay are facing new financial hardships. Also with not doing the in-person 5K, that's actually not a moneymaker for us, but people kind of think that it is because it seems like a big fancy event. So it's difficult to charge the same fee without, I mean, pretty much we cover our costs on that event. It's just part of the program celebration. But, you know, we just want to recognize that this time is hard for everybody, and having this outlet for girls is so important. We would hate for that to be a barrier. We always hate for that to be a barrier, but we know that right now there are families who might feel even more uncomfortable asking for help because it's not something that they are accustomed to doing. So, you know, kind of doing 20% off the top, meeting the moment, and hopefully being able to return when we return to normal.
What's the latest time you can hear that you can resume normal activities for next fall and have your 5K run? What's your cutoff time?
Around August. So we've got time. And I think by then, you know, the schools will have to have in place their plan. Mm-hmm. August is when we'll start registration, and we want to be able to tell families up front one way or the other and charge them appropriately.
Okay. Frank, you have any questions?
No, it's very interesting. I've always been interested in running in big and slow, not the fastest thing in town. However, I just always enjoyed it. When we were overseas in Iran, we came back and ran a memorial race in Charleston, West Virginia, and the guest speaker was Jesse Owens. And then the next year, the same race, another memorial, was still for Steve Prefontaine,
Mm.
a lady named Wilma Rudolph. So, so some pretty good gals, you know,
Yeah.
the best in
Yeah.
the world.
Well, and what we love about running is that it's very accessible, right? So we'd say you just need to have a good pair of running shoes, and it's something that we can provide to all of our girls, no matter where they live, no matter their family income. We partner with Fleet Feet, who gives us a very, very good price on our shoes to be able to get them to all of the girls. That's built into their registration costs. Because, you know, I mean, I register my daughter for things, and the costs add up. You think you're just signing up for the sport, and then you've got the additional supplies, and then you've got the tournament fees, and, you know, on and on. So the great thing about running is that you can do it anywhere. You can do it anytime. You just need your proper shoes. So it's something that can be a real equalizer among our community.
Do you have any orthopedic surgeons or podiatrists as sponsors?
We don't, but that's a good thought. Thankfully, having professionally fitted shoes for your first pair of running does set you up on a good trajectory. I think a lot would say that issues come when you've been running for a long time in the wrong shoes.
The first, one of the first times I got a pair of shoes, and this was New Balance's premier running shoe then. There was no shank in it. It had a rippled sole, and it was sort of like a loafer. I mean, it wasn't anything like the ones today.
Yeah. Well, we still use New Balance shoes, but they look a little bit different now.
Dick, do you have any questions?
I mean, I guess obviously the number of girls is going to be very varied, I guess, by what we're going through with the COVID and everything else like that. So it's probably going to be. What are you expecting this year?
So we're in our spring season right now with about 600. We're hoping for about 900 in fall 2021, and then nearing normal, you know, definitely over 1,000 by spring 2022.
Wow, that's pretty good. Now they all come from just this area of this country. As far as how far reaching do you go on your numbers?
So for the greater Cincinnati region, we are 12 counties in Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana.
So it's a pretty good area.
Yeah.
Do they do now? So do you have separate? Are they separate by state? In other words, do you have a group in Indiana, a group in Kentucky, and a group in Cincinnati, or do they all come together?
For the 5K?
Yeah.
Normally for the 5K, they all come together. So we do it downtown so that nobody's traveling more than an hour. That's really our farthest would be like Williamstown, Kentucky.
Okay.
And then as far north as Middletown. We're just over the border in Indiana, Dearborn County, and Brown County in Ohio. So our end of season 5K, we use in the fall, we use Sawyer Point, and in the spring, we use Paul Brown Stadium. So places that have plenty of parking, you know, easy to get to, plenty of space for us to grow as needed.
That's good. That's great.
How many times does a child participate?
It really varies. It's the same curriculum. So if they repeat, they're doing the same thing. However, they're doing it with a different lens because now they, you know, have a different perspective, and they're doing it with different team members. So it's going to be a different experience. So we have some girls that do it once and that's it. We have some girls that really connect to it, and this kind of becomes like their sport, and they'll do it repeat seasons. I would say that that's less than 20% of our girls that do it more than twice. We also find that in some of our schools that have been around for so long, they just choose one grade because they don't have enough coaches to accommodate, you know, many teams of 16 girls. They'll say, all right, this is just 4th grade girls. so that everybody gets a chance when they're in 4th grade, but it's not some girls doing it multiple times and then some girls not getting to do it at all.
Do some schools have the event for all grades, 3rd through 8th?
Some do. We have 2 different curricula, one that's 3rd through 5th graders and one that's 6th through 8th graders. So we have some schools that do both teams, some that do just 6th through 8th graders, some that do just 3rd through 5th, and then some that within those just choose 1 or 2 grades. So we just look to the schools to whatever they want to do. A lot of times, you know, there might be moms who are coaching and they care a lot about the grade because they want their daughter to do it. Sometimes schools, you know, they always have a 5th grade play. And so they know 5th graders are not going to be participating in something else in the spring. So every school is different.
Okay.
Do the schools pay you anything for this, or is you rely on donations and foundations to help pay the cost of the program?
So schools do not pay, families pay on a sliding scale. So normally our fee, our maximum fee is $165. So that includes all of the curriculum materials that they're going to use for 20 lessons. That includes their running shoes. That includes t-shirts, snacks at every lesson, the 5K expenses. And our sliding scale goes as low as $10. So families pay according to their income bracket. And then we also have a scholarship application for families who cannot pay according to the scale. And that's where our foundation support comes in. So we found that to be a really sustainable model. We think these years are hard for every girl, no matter where she's from. So we don't specifically target, like we don't say that this is for rural girls or inner city girls or low income girls. We think this is a program for all girls. However, in order to be the best stewards of our funds, we want to make sure that the money is going towards the girls who need it the most. So we can add teams in areas like Madeira, Marymount, Sycamore, and those families are able to pay most of their own cost. So then when we get support from someone like you all, we know it's going towards families who really need the support and who might not have access to other sporting programs because of the fee barrier.
How do you qualify or verify that they need the scholarship?
We don't. We've always used the honor system, and it always falls around 50% of families that cover their costs and families that don't. I think if a family was going to lie, then their girl probably needs this program, you know, even more so. The scholarship application is available for families who might say, okay, I make enough where I should be paying $165, but I can't for whatever, you know, we don't necessarily need to know why, or can I pay it in installments? So I think because we allow so many different, you know, ways to pay, then, you know, are there a couple people who take advantage of us? Possibly, but we see enough. And then families who, you know, might make an additional donation when they register, that it seems to work out.
Can you do a percentage?
Yeah.
Like I could pay 50% or?
We pretty much work with whatever they need. We would never want that to be the reason that a girl can't participate.
So the funds that the Elsa School Foundation contributes, I know we've done a couple of times in the past. Do those go towards scholarships, or how do you use those funds?
Yeah, those go directly towards scholarships. So making up that difference for girls who might be paying $10, $20, $50, you know, covering the difference between that and 165.
We cover whatever the difference is and for the full amount. Okay.
How do you, what goals do you have and how do you measure them for the program?
Are you talking about like our strategic goals or the girls' goals?
Both.
Okay. So we have I don't know if you want, the numbers are in the application of, it's about 85% of girls that will complete the program, that will have attendance. And we give them a survey. We don't do it every single season, just from a bandwidth perspective, but we do targeted surveys with a pre and a post to act. What we measure is their perception of themselves, their feelings about their body, their feelings about physical activity, their feelings about being part of a team. So because it's a social emotional learning, it's very internal. So it's what a girl thinks about her experience. So we're measuring that there is an improvement in those areas. Like, I like exercise more now than I did 10 weeks ago, or I feel more comfortable with my peers now than I did 10 weeks ago. And because we're part of a national organization, they also have done a longitudinal study that followed girls after completing the program and found that there was still sustained positivity in those areas. I believe I've sent that or included it in this application, but if you'd like to see it in greater detail, I can send it over. But it also showed that the largest delta was between the girls who scored the lowest at the beginning. So they had very negative feelings about themselves, about how they interact with their peers, about how they, feel in their bodies about exercise, and they had the largest gain, which is pretty exciting, because it does tell us that the girls who need it the most are making the biggest impact. In terms of our goals, our board does an annual board retreat in September, and we have ongoing KPIs, which are a little bit, split up right now. But we have had growth goals about for a while, we were measuring our total number of girls as our growth goal. Like, we wanted to be growing by 5 to 10% annually of the number of girls that we reached. We found out from a survey from Girls on the Run International that our saturation rate was actually very high nationally, 14%, which didn't seem like that was that high for me, but some of the other highest were at about 10% saturation. So we were advised that that goal was not going to be sustainable for us in the target area that we cover to continue to grow by that much each year. So what we've actually been looking at is the number of girls per team and trying to make sure that we're maximizing efficiencies by filling our teams. So if we're going to have 100 teams, we could have 100 teams of 8 girls or 100 teams of 16 girls. And it's about the same effort for us either way. So clearly it makes more sense for us to focus on filling the teams that we have versus, expanding to a new county and trying to add more teams that way. So that's where our effort had been focused. We actually did increase by a full average 1 girl per team in the before times. So we will this September. Last year we just kind of took a pause, and our goals were to make it through this. And I'm very proud of the way that we have, continuing to reach girls where we could. And in September we will regroup and create the next 2-year strategic goal.
Did you get any PPP or small business, all the different aid that was out there?
We did. We got in 2020, we got the first draw PPP, and we had it forgiven in December. And then I've applied for the second draw for 2021.
Yeah, the kids that have the lowest self-esteem, the lowest, say, body image that you say make the biggest advances, why would they join in the first place? Are they encouraged to join, or do they say, I'm fat, I don't like myself, but if I join Girls on the Run, I've heard that I might get better? Is that just, yeah?
Yeah, both. And I mean, that's anecdotal, but coaches certainly encourage girls to sign up. But because we're a non-competitive program, because it's all individual goal setting, it does attract girls who might be, you know, athletic curious that they're intimidated because they don't want to fail. So they don't want to try out for the track team or the basketball team because they don't want to be cut, and they don't want to, you know, show that they are not as good in their mind as their peers. But because they learn that this is just about establishing personal goals, it's less intimidating for them to join.
Do any of the kids that have the negative perceptions, once they complete your program, do they then go on to the competitive? Do they feel more confident about doing that?
Some do. And I will say those, when we talked about the number of girls that are repeat, that's really where we get a lot of the repeat girls because they connect to this program.
Do you see any correlation to the success they have with you to a success in other areas, maybe academic or social, or is there any questioning on that?
We don't have any qualitative data on that, or any quantitative data on that. We have stories from, so we survey the families and the teachers, and just in kind of allowing for them to share their perception of it. So girls are often not going to be like great self-reporters in that area, but teachers can say that that's what they see. And most of our teachers who are coaches say that that's the reason that they continue to coach, because it's a volunteer for them and they could get paid to be, you know, to do something else after school by their school. But because they see the impact of it, that's what keeps them coming back.
Okay. Do you have any questions for us?
I guess I'd like to know what you guys have seen, you know, out of the last year, the impacts on the community. You know, I'm kind of isolated in what we've been doing from Girls on the Run, but you know, just from a philanthropic perspective, I know you said you had a ton more applications this year, but have you heard like more success stories of people who are able to carve out a little impact?
Some, I think it depends on the type of organization it is. If you have something like yours, then you really have your hands tied or your feet tied. We were just talking with another organization that seemed to be doing really well because, I don't know why, but they were serving a lot of people. Then a musical organization that kind of made a really big effort to get out there among the public, but in open spaces. So you know, I think it's just, what do you think, Jordan?
I mean, yeah, I agree. It's kind of been all over the board. Some have kind of struggled, but that was just because they couldn't really do much. But then there's other ones like food pantries who saw their need increase, 30%. And so it's kind of, and they're working overtime. So yeah, it's definitely all over the place. I know in the beginning, which was now basically a year ago, we saw a lot of requests coming in for a lot of everything seemed to deal with education, because everyone kind of foresaw that there's gonna be like an educational slide with kids not being in person, and then also the gap between some had the ability to easily log on and do the work while others didn't. So there was a lot of technology in the beginning, I think, that we were kind of we always hear about the summer slide. It seems like every single year we're seeing requests for that, but this was kind of a new type of slide that no kids are in school and they're at home working on the laptop slide, if you will. Yeah, it's definitely been interesting.
There were a lot of summer camp type of organizations that just canceled last year.
Yeah.
So this is kind of particular to the type of organization, what they did, when they did it, how they did it, whether they could go forward or not.
And I think, I mean, one thing that we saw with every organization. I don't know if there was one that was unaffected because it basically took a year. They had to kind of change things up a little bit, but most organizations do some sort of large annual fundraiser, and obviously no one was gathering, so those were pretty much either canceled completely or they kind of shifted to an online one, which wasn't maybe as successful as kind of the in-person one, and the kind of the rippling effect of, those organizations are pretty constant with, raising X amount of funds every single year, and they kind of rely on that. And it's been reliable, and all of a sudden it's like, oh no, we don't have that this year.
Mhm.
Like, we need to figure it out. So
Yeah, that
I've
makes
seen
sense.
that too. So, yeah. Our board meets on April 29th at the end of this month. And as you know, we usually like to get back to everybody within a week of the meeting. So first week of May, you'd be hearing back from us.
Okay, thank you.
And so, yeah, I guess thanks for taking time this afternoon to meet with us and giving us an update.
Thank you
Of
very
course.
much.
Thank you.
Have a good
Meet
rest
those
of
of
the day.
you. You as well.
Right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.